Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, several months ago, we did this video right here where we talked about the ongoing war that was being waged on the FFL industry, primarily through new ATF regulations, which were adding far more onus onto the industry to enforce ATF's kind of goofy rules, as well as add additional costs to their operations, which would inevitably have to be passed on to the consumer. It turns out that that video was perhaps a little more clairvoyant than we had hoped, because word is coming out that there is an absolute onslaught of activity by ATFs against the FFL industry, and it is very alarming and something that all of us in the lawful and responsible gun owning community needs to be aware of. So today, we're going to spend a few minutes and talk about the all-out attack on the FFL industry. Okay, so the story we're talking about today was first brought to our attention by the good folks over at ammoland.com. I do highly recommend, if you want to stay up on real current events related to your Second Amendment rights, check them out at ammoland.com. It is the story of a New Jersey FFL gentleman named Ira Levitt. Now, you can imagine what a challenge it is to be an FFL in any state, let alone a state as blue as New Jersey. Ira and his family, it's a family-run business, has now transferred over 21,000 firearms in his professional career. And to date, Ira had not had a single violation. So let's say that again. Ira, in a state such as New Jersey, had transferred over 21,000 firearms, subject to all sorts of ATF inspections, and not a single violation or problem ever discovered. Well, that all changed recently when an ATF Industry Operations Inspector, IOI, these are the ATF agents that are tasked with going out and inspecting and regulating FFLs, found multiple violations. Now, what were these violations? Well, on a few of the 4473s, instead of the county being listed, purchasers had written the letters USA. Why? Well, because they misread the question and thought that they were asking country, not county, and his employees didn't happen to catch that error. Oh, the other violation, on 3 instances, individuals who had already cleared the background check, been given the proceed by ATF, came in and picked their firearms up after 30 days. What's the problem? Those background checks are only good for 30 days, and so therefore they would have needed to actually go through a new background check. And a part-time employee transferred 3 firearms to people with cleared background checks and proceeds, but on day 31 or 32 to 3 individuals. Now, even though the FFL and Mr. Levin was able to go out and rectify this issue, and all 3 of those people turned out to be lawful, responsible gun owners, he was still found in violation for those 3 instances. Now, Mr. Levin, who's been in the industry for a long time and knows a lot of other people in the industry, figured he'd probably get a letter of reprimand, perhaps warning, perhaps be required to do some additional training. But no! You see, IOI John Curtis sent him a letter saying that his federal firearms license was to be revoked. That is right. They are going to revoke his license. Now, the good news for Mr. Levin, he has an opportunity to have an administrative appeal conducted, which is just a review of the lower record. Who is the presiding judge or arbiter for that appeal? Well, it's Mr. Curtis, the very same individual from the ATF who's already decided that he's going to yank this gentleman's license. Now, some of you may recall our president, Joe Biden, in June of 2021, talking about how he was going to go after these rogue gun dealers. Because you see, the problem with the gun violence problem in America is the rogue gun dealers, you see. Because all of these criminals are going into these rogue gun stores and buying firearms from the actual gun dealers. They're not buying them off the street. They're not stealing them. They're not into that. No, they're buying them all from rogue gun dealers, but I digress. But the president said that there were 5 dirty sins that if an FFL engaged in any one of these, this is how they were going to get their license revoked. And they included the following: transferring a firearm to a prohibited person, failing to run a required background check, falsifying records, failing to respond to an ATF tracing request, or refusing to allow ATF to conduct an inspection. And when we go back and we look at this list of Joe Biden's 5 deadly sins, we will see that Mr. Levin committed none of them. Now, what's even more alarming is that a report published in May on Amaland.com suggested that revocations of FFLs throughout the United States is up 500%. That is a 5-fold increase from the previous year. Now, the ATF was not real comfortable in commenting on that, but they did admit that in the year 2022 so far, there have been 92 FFL licenses yanked somewhere in this country. And the ATF also admits that that is the largest number of FFL revocations in the last 16 years. And let us remember that this data was as of August of this year, leaving the ATF several more months to continue to set records. Now, someone who is thrilled with this news is, of course, former ATF Director nominee David Chipman, always a fan of the Second Amendment, because Mr. Chipman is quoted as saying, "The trend line is good. I think we have to applaud the agency for holding the industry accountable for doing its job." But in many ways, I think that Mr. Levitt, the victim of this outrageous governmental conduct, sums it up best when he states, "The ATF is no longer pursuing criminals. It has become a political arm of the White House. These ATF agents, they're no longer worried about what's right and wrong. They're worried about their jobs. This is all part of Biden's zero-tolerance policy for gun dealers." And this is a problem and a trend which is growing by the day. This administration absolutely wants to disarm the American citizenry. There's that pesky little thing called the Constitution that keeps getting in the way, and there's the lack of the political will from Congress to get things done. So what do? They have to find end-arounds to the legislative process. They have to find end-arounds to the constitutional protections that we're all afforded. And one way to make sure that individuals can no longer access firearms, we'll just get rid of everyone in the business of providing them with the firearms. Listen, you may have more questions about this or anything else related to your Second Amendment rights. And if you do, remember, you can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, let's remember, part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.